So I wanted to make this video for a while, and I can't think of a better place to start with than the series that started Warhammer in general. Warhammer, The Old World. It's pretty obvious that Warhammer takes a lot of inspiration from other fantasy series and historical events. Because of that, I want to take that concept of inspiration from other settings and try to bring that back into 40k in the form of these videos. Here's a quick breakdown for what we're going to be doing for this video. First off, we're going to be looking at concepts from pre-existing series or settings, and we're going to examine those concepts and how we can adapt those plot points or practices into Warhammer 40k. To clarify, this isn't just us copying plot points from series and pasting them into 40k. I want to try and make these concepts be as seamless a 40k story as possible and not seem like they come out of nowhere. So make sure to let me know how well I did in the comment section below. So let's get to covering how I think Warhammer the Old World can make Warhammer 40k an even more fun and engaging setting. And we're going to be doing this by taking a look at two major factions within the Old World, those being the Empire of Man and the Kingdoms of Bretonnia. If you guys aren't familiar with either of those two factions, I'll try to give you a brief overview and I'll try to make sure to leave a link in the description if you guys want more info. Starting off, the Empire of Man was created by Sigmar Heldenhammer, who united the 13 tribes of mankind against the orcs, the undead, and even the forces of chaos. The Empire of Man stands as a cosmopolitan superpower across the known world and was based off the Holy Roman Empire, right down to having a period of multiple people declaring themselves emperor and causing a civil war because of it. And like the Emperor in Warhammer 40k, Sigmar was once a mortal man who actually reached godhood because of how powerful and well respected he was. Next up, we have the Kingdoms of Bretonnia. These are noble knights who actually travel the land in search of quests and completing noble deeds in order to earn the favor of the Lady of the Lake. Through her blessing, noble knights gain access to superhuman abilities, including accelerated healing, blood that can actually purify evil, the ability to project holy energy through their weapons, and being able to survive most forms of damage. Basically, with her blessing, medieval knights can actually be turned into Space Marine level warriors. It's also because of these superhuman soldiers that Bretonnia actually has been able to last so long despite its primitive state of technology. If you guys are listening to both these factions and your first thought is the Imperium of Man, you're right. Basically, the Imperium of Man is a fusion of both the Empire and Bretonnia put together, but with a healthy mix of xenophobia thrown in. So you might be asking, what exactly can 40k take from Bretonnia and the Empire as factions? Well, it's pretty simple. First off, we split the difference. Now, you guys may be wondering what that means. To put it lightly, I think the Imperium needs another rebellion. Yes, I know that might sound a little crazy, especially given the fact that the galaxy is already literally split in half, but I think we can go even further. Because one of the most common complaints people have with 40k is the fact that the Imperium will never actually lose and there isn't really any stakes. Alongside that, it's actually a commonly held criticism that there's only one human faction, that being the Imperium. And while that's good for people who like the Imperium and their entire concept and their themes, there are also a lot of people who actually want there to be more diversity among the human faction. Factions like the Sovereign Dominant are fan favorites specifically because they are a collection of sectors who actually manage to become independent from the Imperium. Now, while they do this through making trade agreements with the Drukhari, they are still a fan favorite because of the fact that they stood up to the Imperium and became independent. So I think this would be a really great way to actually further develop that concept. Creates a lot more stakes for the galaxy overall, as everyone would instantly jump onto the power vacuum this would create. And how it would handle this plot point is pretty simple, because while everyone is looking at the Horus Heresy 2 Electric Boogaloo, I'm more focused on GW expanding on the Nova Terra Interregnum. The Nova Terra Interregnum was a period where the Imperium did literally split in two, with there being actually two capitals of the Imperium, one on Holy Terra and one on the planet Nova Terra. This led to a period of civil war where the Imperium was divided for nearly 1,000 years and locked in civil war. And honestly, this period is really interesting. Like, think about the depth of complexity of the situation that could unfold here, specifically in regards to Space Marine chapters and their loyalties. And not just Space Marines, because every faction could get some level of development with a single change to setting. To do this, I would first use a Nova Terra Interregnum as a basis. This would literally be a second Nova Terra Interregnum and see the entire Segmentum Pacificus secede from the major Imperium. Their logic being that using the chaos of the Great Rift alongside the Fourth Tyrannic War, they would claim their independence and go on to become a major superpower in their own right. Now, you might call this action stupid, and to a point it is, but you also can say dumber political decisions haven't been made in real life. But also, I think this would do a lot of things right when it comes to developing and advancing the overall narrative. Imagine an entire segmentum being free to develop technology, no longer constrained to the limits of the Imperium and the Mechanicus of Mars. And yes, while I am aware there are cogboys in every segmentum, I am also aware that not all Forge worlds agree with the Treaty of Mars, and not even really like one another all too much. Or hell, the Imperium and Mechanicus don't always work together either. Who's to say, in this chaotic period, one Imperial world commits a couple war crimes and unprovokedly attacks a Forge world? For some reason, I'm imagining this Imperial world to be Canadian for some reason. Suddenly, the vaults of Forge worlds are opened, either by the orders of their newly independent leaders or by force through invasion and warfare. And again, there's a lot of Tyranids in this relatively small segment of space. Who's to say the Shadow in the Warp isn't also messing with the Imperium's ability to find these rebel worlds? And then you can also add in other concepts like how do Space Marines react? What do the Soul Blades, those companies of Space Marines who are now effectively behind enemy lines, do? Return to the true Imperium and leave these worlds to be eaten by the Great Devourer? Some of you might say yes, but ask yourself this. Would my brother Gilliman, aware of how numerically fucked they are, take that risk? Even if he was, not every chapter is willing to just throw away lives. Think of the Salamanders, for instance. Or what about the bonds and oaths of blood and brotherhood that are made between chapters? Do they abandon their allies to die and forsake their honor? Then you have to consider the gambler's logic, where every dead Marine needs to be avenged 10 times over. There are a lot of story elements that can be created through this one change. And to add one last bit about Space Marines, because I know a lot of you are going to say Space Marines wouldn't let it happen, or would, without a doubt, stay loyal to the Imperium. You guys are wrong. And I can prove it with one simple answer. It already fucking happened. And when the Imperium was a lot more powerful and a whole lot less fucked. Plus, consider how many chapters have been broken or nearly wiped out over the course of the Fourth Tyrannic War. And maybe, while they're not disloyal to the Imperium, they view the limitation of 1,000 Space Marines as stupid. And before anyone says Gilman removed that limit, no, that was not a worthwhile change. There was no big mention in the Codex. The Black Templars are still special snowflakes, and fuck the Space Wolves. I think I lost the plot here. Back to the point I'm trying to make, though. The White Templars were basically wiped out, their gene vaults were ravaged, most of their chapter is dead, and all their ancient dreadnoughts are gone. Imagine the sheer desperation this chapter and the lengths they might go to survive. We know the traitor legions, and eventually loyalist ones too, cut corners in the creation process of the Astartes in order to mass produce Marines during the heresy. It's still how most of the traitor legions recruit to this day. There's no reason one chapter or another, suddenly being given the chance to grow beyond 1,000 Marines, wouldn't do so, and to the point it's a highly debated topic in the community already. And that's not even including the 100 or so Primaris Space Marine chapters that were founded during the Indominus Crusade. Some of these Primaris chapters even have Marines who are old enough to remember the Great Crusade and when Space Marines fought as legions. There are so many reasons for why a chapter might reject the Codex and be willing to take up their arms in response to this new Nova Imperium. And again, to clarify, this isn't just about Space Marines in this video, it's just that a lot of their fans are way more vocal. So let's examine some other factions and how they can benefit from this narrative expansion. Imagine a guard regiment who is now allowed to adopt new tactics, technologies, and practices that would otherwise be considered traitorous, like retreating. Of course, that's not the only plotline that could be arise from this development. Imagine the number of still loyal Imperial worlds now forced to fend off their enemies, plus being surrounded by traitor worlds. Really brings in the feel that made Cadia special, but gives it an even more humane twist. Adding on to that, and assuming you guys know enough about Warhammer Fantasy, you probably think I'd keep the true Imperium as a stand-in for the Empire of Man. But you're wrong. In this case, the Imperium would actually be a stand-in for Bretonnia, as they would be a far better fit, given both have a demigod military dictator who is leading an army of superpowered warriors in armor. That means this new Nova Terra Imperium needs to be a cosmopolitan, industrial superpower of an empire that values alliances with other races. Yes, that's right. I think this Nova Terra Imperium would align with Xenos, though mostly just trading technology and territory. Adding on to that, this Nova Terra would ideally have a human emperor. Unlike the Horus Heresy and the Black Crusades that have had a transhuman general at their head, this empire should have a dynasty or some sort of noble family, much like Karl Franz leading them. And if we borrow the Sigmarite warrior faith, we can also tie this to the new independent segmentum and the faith of the ecclesiarchy. Like maybe following the Dark Imperium trilogy and Gilman's outcry of the church, a highly devoted sect of the ecclesiarchy, fearful of losing power, begins to back a segmentum lord. Oh yeah, if you guys didn't know, segmentum lords are a thing. These are individuals who possess the authority and command over all the military assets across a single segmentum. And why we don't hear anything about these guys is honestly insane given how important and powerful they are. Because these guys have the potential to be characters like the admirals from One Piece. And if any of you Imperial fanboys dislike this idea, feel free to tell me why. But before you do, consider the issues this solves for the setting. It expands on the human faction while also giving us an unfortunately very real fact that sometimes crises do cause empires to collapse. And yes, I know technically the Dark Imperium is a stand-in for the metaphorical Holy Roman Empire that split in two, but if that was the case, the northern half of the Imperium should have already become feudalistic states. Instead, however, Games Workshop tells us how bad it is but doesn't really fully show us. Yeah, in Lion Son of the Forest, we do see worlds on the other side of the Great Rift, but what happens to those worlds isn't any different or worse than what happens to worlds on the good side of the Rift. It also kicks the Imperium into taking way more extreme measures and by extension challenges Gilliman as a character being forced to grapple with what he needs to do now that the Imperium is truly split. Plus, this also works as a great pocket empire for Dorne to take over when he returns, without blueballing us with the will they won't they between Gilliman and Dorne. Plus, given Dorne's recent brush with Faith alongside his acceptance of Sigismund, whom the Black Templars trace their lineage to, I think it would be fitting for him to take over a religious empire that has legions of space marines under him. Though that is only if the idea of having an actual human leading the human empire is too crazy for you guys. This new imperium could also create a schism within the Sisters of Battle as well. Imagine a war of faith between those already present Sisters of Battle orders and a new one founded within the Nova Imperium. An order that believes that those within the original Imperium are misguided or faithless, and it is their divine duty to save their imprisoned god on Holy Terra. This literally creates a solution to the age-old question in war games, which is, why are our factions fighting? How many of you guys have played a game where its two Imperium factions are fighting each other? It's not game breaking, but it can definitely affect immersion, especially if you, like me, write lore based around the games you play. Speaking of writing your own lore, hi, if you're one of the 40,000 individuals who suffer with the inability to write your own homebrew lore, don't worry, your prince is here to help. I created this handy homebrew generator for Space Marine chapters. If you'd like to give it a try, there's a link in the description of this video, and if you want to support the creation of future expansions, consider subscribing to my Patreon. Be one of the first individuals to watch my videos early, get access to behind the scenes content, access to Discord, and a shout out in my videos. So, thank you to the beautiful Gerald, the Dwarven host. You are the first official citizen in my growing empire. Now, with the lovely shouts out of the way, let's get back to some of the benefits we could see if Games Workshop decided to give this plot point a go. So let's get to stroking the Imperium players one last time. If you guys are generally upset about a full segmentum of the Imperium turning traitor, we could easily say that only 1/3 of the segmentum actually turned traitor, with 2/3 having yet to join their movement. We could also add in a twist saying that while there are still loyal elements within these remaining 2/3, the vast majority has remained undecided and are actually waiting to see which way the wind blows. And this could start a whole new series of campaigns and crusades, both in universe and in the real world, to take back these worlds. Imagine something similar to the Battle for Ogram that GW did with the release of 10th edition, but instead make it so that it was a bi-weekly thing that had multiple planets up for grabs by all the factions. Then GW could end the edition out with a final tally of the worlds that stayed loyal, turned traitor, fell to chaos, or are currently under Xenos occupation. I'd also personally suggest UW start pushing out novellas set around this time period. Not a 52 book series like the Heresy or even a 10.5 book series like the Dawn of Fire series. Instead, I push for maybe a 4 or 5 book anthology series that covers how each major faction is handling or taking advantage of the situation. I'd then end the Civil War plotline with Dorne returning, but not seeing the Nova Terra Imperium go away. Instead, they'd remain an allied power in the galaxy just like how Bretonia is to the Empire. However, just like those two factions, they would still be at each other's throats as well. Hell, imagine if Dorne is so broken from the last 10,000 years that not only has he found religion, but maybe he also found the Star Child and is having it set up in his new Imperium. It would be pretty fitting for Dorne to become a sort of anti-Horus figure, using the Emperor's lightning claw to protect the aspect of the Emperor, where Horus used his to rip his father's soul apart. And the Segmentum Lord could also serve as a great foil and counter to All Person, who sacrificed himself to save the Emperor. It would be such a fun plotline to see explored, and I hope you guys enjoyed my glorified fanfiction for what I want to see 40k take from the old world. Of course, I have other ideas for other series and franchises that Games Workshop should look at copying to help revitalize 40k as well. While I do hate the general fear-mongering that a lot of old Hammer nerds have, alongside the outright annoying bitching and moaning they do, I have to agree there is something missing from modern Warhammer. And to be honest, I think what is missing is the fact that it's too safe and people are too scared to do something weird and fun anymore. And I don't mean weird or fun like female space marines. I mean wild shit that changes the setting, creates drama, and allows for the opportunity for fun stories and interesting characters to be introduced. Overall, though, those are just my thoughts, and if you like this video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Make sure YouTube's Machine Spirit hears our prayers and sees our growing community. And if you guys like this video, why not check out another one of my videos? I've got Homebrew Heresy for those of you who want to see your heretical ideas come to life. I've got controversial hot takes, including my fence-sitting take on female custodies, and I've got some lore discussions if that's more your cup of tea. Otherwise, though, I've got nothing else to say, and I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Bye.